Welcome to episode 191 of Stageworthy. I'm your host, Phil Rickaby, and this is the Toronto Fringe Roundtable. And so it's early in the morning. It is 9:34 as we record this, and which is early in Fringe time.
That's really
early in Fringe time. So I thank everybody for coming. Why don't we start on my right, and everybody just say your name and what your show is, and then we'll get things started.
Cool. My name is Kaho Koda, and I am the writer and director of Decaying Tongue.
My name is Shane Adamchuk, and I am doing a show called The Ballad of Frank Allen that I wrote, directed, and in.
My name is Sarah Joy Bennett. I am with Nightfeed. I'm the writer-director and one of the performers and one of the co-creators of that.
Ang panalang ko ay Monica. That means hi, I'm Monica in Tagalog. And I'm doing Monica versus the Internet. I'm the performer, co-creator, and Monica in it.
I'm Carlin. I'm the creator and performer in the ADHD Project, a comedy about growing up a little bit special.
Awesome. And I'm Phil. My show's The Commandment. I've mentioned it before. So let's... Fringe is now a few days old. This is the first Saturday of the Fringe. We've had a few days. Some of us just opened. A few of us have a couple of shows under our belts. So, how's your Fringe been going, guys?
Fantastic.
So far, so good.
Yeah.
It's been a sweaty one so far.
Yes. Yeah. I don't think that's particularly uncommon.
Yeah.
At the Toronto Fringe, it's usually a sweaty...
Fringe is a sweaty time.
It's a sweaty time.
In
It's a sweaty
general.
time, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's time
But,
to be moist.
Yeah, all the
glowing.
venues I've been to have had nice aircon, which is nice.
That's good.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
important.
A couple don't.
Are they BYOVs or...
I don't know. I just saw on someone's
Nay,
poster.
man,
it said-
shame.
Yeah.
Nay, man,
Yeah.
shame.
I don't know. I just saw a poster. It said air conditioning no, and I was like, what? Why are you advertising that?
There used to be one...
Yeah.
There used to be a venue that was not air conditioned. It was the only one. They've since ditched it, but it was the dance venue.
Oh,
I know.
Sorry, what are you doing?
Wrong
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
Just
Just
real
why?
bad.
It was a terrible, terrible venue for everybody. Let's take a second. Everybody, tell me a little bit, or tell everybody a little bit about your show. Carlin, why don't you start?
Yeah, the ADHD Project. It's a storytelling show about growing up with ADHD, being in a segregated classroom, and kind of how I found that ADHD is actually my superpower. Yeah.
Monica versus the Internet, Tales of a Social Justice Warrior, is about my time as a Filipina YouTuber and how horribly wrong that went. I talk about racism online. I talk about intergenerational trauma within my family and my mom and Lilang, which is Ilocano for grandma. And I talk about it in a very funny and hilarious way, because I think racism is hilarious most of the time, and I think that white people are very uncomfortable when I get to laugh at it. So I love making white people uncomfortable. That's my business.
Nightfeed is a puppet play for adults about motherhood, about the stranger, darker sides of motherhoods that generally doesn't get talked about all that much. It's a 3-person piece, and it is a fever dream that a new mom is having in the dark armpit of another night, where she's been up. She can't remember. It might be the thousandth feed. It might be the first feed. She's lost count, and her world has shrunk to the size of her couch. And all of a sudden, all of the objects in her apartment come to life and look at her and start speaking to her, and they give voice to all of her own fears and self-doubt and anxiety and the things she won't admit that she's thinking about and dreaming about. And yeah, we see how she finds her own voice and her own path towards being the mother that she wants to be.
Cool. My show, The Ballad of Frank Allen, it's a comedy, a two-hander about a man who gets shrunk and spends 2 years living inside another man's beard. It's a sci-fi buddy comedy. It's essentially an exploration of masculinity and what it means to be a good man in the modern world with a beard.
Decaying Tongue is a story about Aya, who is a Japanese immigrant in Canada. So we explore how she interacts with her very traditional Japanese family to Western friends, and also ignorant strangers who give racy comments just by the streetcar. It happens all the time. So yeah, it's a storytelling storytelling-ish, a little bit of fiction added to what I've experienced as a Japanese woman living in Canada for 8 years. Yeah.
Awesome. We talked about that when you were on the podcast a little bit more. So I want to take a little bit more time with everybody's show. Monica, I saw your show last night, and I'm going to say, and I'll be honest, there's as a white person, maybe uncomfortable. But
Perfect.
Thank you. Yes, I know that's what you want. But also, I think it's like when white people feel uncomfortable, they usually cross their arms and don't listen. So it's a question of like, why am I uncomfortable? And so that's what I left thinking about. What is it that made me uncomfortable about the show? Do you find that that's a common reaction? What is there a common reaction? And what would be your preferred reaction for? There's two different reactions that I saw in the audience. There were the people of color, and there were the white folks. And so I'm
funny
sure
how that happens.
I know, right? Weird. But there's like two different reactions that people leave with. Is my reaction what you're hoping for, or what? Talk about that.
Yeah. Well, first off, I want to say that I've done 2 shows, and out of both shows, 2 old white men have fallen asleep, which is so perfect and hilarious. I couldn't market my show any better. So clearly, not for him. I think it's funny. I think a lot of folks ask me about this, about like, where does whiteness fit into this? And I talk a lot about how my privilege means that I need to be doing this work because I have light skin. And that access point of privilege means that I need to be speaking to white people as well as speaking to my own people, So, I do want white people to be uncomfortable, and discomfort needs to be something productive rather than sitting in shame and sitting in white fragility. Because the show isn't for white people. And I think a lot of it's kind of mixed. It's a mixed bag depending on who talks about it or writes about it. Things like it's totally for white people or it's totally for people of color. But I'm mixed. It's for everyone to come and to think about topics about gender studies, about critical race theory that I don't think is happening at Fringe very often, or at least not the Fringes that I've been to. Toronto's certainly better than a lot of the places I've been, but the racism that I've faced on the circuit is insurmountable. I cannot describe it enough. So the show came out of a need to speak not only to white people in general, but to white fringe artists. Yeah. And that was really important to me. And to be able to have those conversations without people being like, well, we're not going to hang out with those people over there, which happens. Sure. We've been isolated in so many ways from other fringe artists because nobody's ready to talk about it. Sure. I think it can be very broad, and I want folks to feel uncomfortable, but I want folks to leave thinking about what steps they need to do in order to be doing this work, whether that's anti-racism work or starting to look at what intersectional feminism is or critical anti-blackness. Or against anti-blackness is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. I think anti-blackness, again, is something that really gets left out of these conversations. And it's not my experience, but I need to be bringing it to the forefront, or anti-indigeneity as well. So, I don't know if that really answers your question.
You know what? It was sort of the kind of, it doesn't matter if I answer the question because I think it's important. Because I think making white people uncomfortable is super important.
Well, white people are pandered to.
Yes.
Every other place. Yeah. And even me saying white people makes people does this sound I used to think at a certain point in the show, the first version, just hear the seat creaks. And that was my measure of yes. We should be destabilizing these feelings. We live in a violent white supremacist world and people are dying. Yeah. So, if I'm going to do a Fringe show about it and I'm going to be doing this live, that we need to be talking about these things.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. You've done 2 shows so far?
2.
2 shows. an old white man has fallen asleep in each. Aside
Two for two.
2 for 2. She's 2 for 2. In fact, if you
put that in
don't
a
start
poster.
tracking that on your Instagram, I'm going to be personally very disappointed. But aside from that, how's the reaction been? Like the audience that I was in last night was super into it, which was awesome.
Yeah, someone in the middle of the show said, "Oh my god, I love this show."
I did. I saw that. She was like right down in the front. That was great.
I just like blew a kiss. I'm like, I love you, thank you. And yeah, people are very affected, especially if they have any kind of like mixed identity, or even if folks aren't mixed, they know the content. People of color live this every single day, and are appreciative that I'm talking about these things from an access of privilege, and like how asking other folks with privilege to come along on that ride with me. So yeah, the reactions quieter than like, it's really quiet in Toronto, which is weird. Like I'm used to people like at least laughing uncomfortably, you know, like not just like yes.
You know what? Toronto's a weird city for comedy. There's like, it's weird. It is weird. I've had people, you know, like there's some audiences that laugh real loud, and then there are other audiences that are so quiet, and you're like, fuck, they hate this. And then afterwards they're like, yes, and you're like,
what?
What did I do?
What? Well, I don't understand anything.
Yeah, well, it's hard to sell a comedy when you're sharing your YouTube comments. Like, the one on my card is Monica Ogden's the worst Asian I ever saw. Filipinas are supposed to be hot, not feminist. So when people see that, they're like, oh, I'm not allowed to laugh. I'm like, yes, you are. Because I've brought it here for you.
Yeah.
Like, let's laugh at these horrible comments. So, yeah, it's... Yeah.
Awesome. Carlin, I want to ask you a little bit about your show, the ADHD Project, which I feel a certain amount of love for, simply because we were on a writing retreat.
Yeah.
When you finished that, and I'm like, oh, that's the show that she finished on the writing retreat I put together.
The month before the first Fringe.
Well, you like left and did a preview of that, like.
Oh
almost,
yeah,
like, that
yeah,
same
yeah.
weekend.
It was it was like a couple of weeks right after the retreat. I went and did In the Soil, did the first show.
Because your first show is not, I mean, it's a personal show. Sayor is a personal show, but not, I don't know, is it quite as personal? Because this seems like almost like the show that you wanted to create off the top.
Yeah, and I think we chatted about that before. Kind of like, I've always wanted to talk about my experience with ADHD, and I just wanted to make sure that I was in the right place, that I could like have the skills to like write and tell this story properly, because I knew that there was going to be a lot of other people that I was kind of like speaking for. And so when I took, so I did a different show first to kind of get my feet wet with Fringe, and then took this one on. Yeah.
What was, I mean, in terms of, I mean, what's the writing? Because you mentioned, well, this is how I write the show. I've heard you make offhanded comments about this, how I write the show. Like, what is your process like for writing a show like this?
Yeah, this one in particular, but kind of all my shows, it's like I do anything I can possibly do to write. So I do like writing. I do just practicing storytelling with like recording myself. I do a lot of speech to text when I get bored of writing. There's a lot of scrap pieces of paper. I still find scrap pieces of paper, like they're like ADHD Project 2017, this story. And I'm like, what? This isn't in it anymore. Why is this even like in my backpack? So I just try and spread out as much as possible, anything to keep focused and keep working on the project. Yeah.
And has it evolved since? Like, does it keep evolving? Does it keep changing?
I think so, yeah. I'm in that, like, sweet part now. Like, I don't know if you guys feel like when you've done the show so many times that you can, like, kind of change it on the fly if you need to and like, react off the audience. So I'm in that, like, really nice spot now because I do the show throughout the year for schools.
Right.
So it's kind of always in my brain.
Right.
So if I'm like, oh, I'm going kind of slow today, or I gave more details in this story, I can cut a story on the fly or add a new one in if I need to. There's a story about how I lose my car, and on the day before Fringe, I lost my car. Like, at least I knew it was, like, I knew I parked it somewhere, so I wasn't an actual, like, lose. Yeah. But I couldn't find it, and people were like, hey, Carlin, can you give me a ride home? And I was like, Yeah, but fun thing, you have to help me
Scavenger
find.
hunt.
Yeah. So props to Grummo from Pack Animals and DK from Magic Mike, who stayed with me for probably an hour.
Oh, wow.
Looking for it, yeah, after Dark Day Monday. So yeah.
But you found it.
I found it.
Excellent.
I always
That's good.
find it. It's never been left.
Touch wood, touch wood.
Yes.
Awesome. Kaho, we talked, like I said, we talked in depth about your show, but give us, because your show is about dual identities. So can we talk a little bit about your dual identities and the differences between, because you talked about the differences between when you're here and when you're in Japan and things like that. So
Yeah, for sure. So I'm Japanese and I was born in Japan, but I was kind of raised in both North America and in Japan. So whenever I go to the next location, I always have to kind of switch my personality around, since in Japan, it's the importance is on the teamwork, the community, all of that. Whereas in North America, it's more individualistic. So I wrote it in the show too, but badly put, a little selfish compared to Japan. So adjusting to that, how I talk to my friends becomes very different when I'm here versus when I'm in Japan. So one big example and something I was hurt was one time when I went back to Japan after living here for a year, seeing my best friends, and for them, it was just a comment, but someone said, "Oh, so you're more like a foreigner now." And in Japan, it's always, you're either Japanese or you're not. So there's that very distinct, if you're not Japanese, you are a foreigner. And that's how people label people. And I'm from that culture. Like, I never knew about it because I was in the midst of it. I didn't feel that because I'm sort of the in-group. I'm Japanese, so I never felt that. But going back and forth, it's so prominent. Like, I dress differently now compared to what normal, quote unquote, Japanese people, like how they dress, how they wear their makeup. You're supposed to be wearing makeup as an adult, as a Japanese woman. So like all these like small things that I'm not used to here. Whenever I go, I always get stares. I speak like fully in Japanese. It's my mother tongue. I can speak it, but a lot of people, who want to help me, thinking that I'm a tourist, will try to talk to me in English. And it's really uncomfortable to tell them, so I'm Japanese, I know my way around, but thank you so much. So there's that like weird experiences that I feel there. And then I come back and I'm comfortable now in Canada because I've been here for the past 8 years. So it's always a transition, whether it be for like a week that I'm visiting my family or like I come back and I readjust to Canada. Yeah, it's weird, and yeah.
Is there a transition that's easier to make, or are they both equally as difficult?
They're both equally very difficult. And it's just the smallest things. Like, I think I talked about it before, but in Japan, public transportation is just amazing. So when I'm back, I'm just like, yes, on the dot, 10:01 a.m., like getting on this bus, this train. So I'm thankful for that. And then I come back and I, use a TTC, and it's like, okay, we're back to this. It's not that punctual here, but that's okay. Just all of that. But yeah, it's always interesting.
Now, in Decaying Tongue, you have two actresses playing Aya?
Yes. So the main character, Aya, who's pretty much, I guess, me, is played by two actors. So one represents the Japanese self. So she's more of the modest, a bit more sophisticated, if you will, kind of person. And the other westernized Aya is more of the free, very colorful, feminist, like, super outgoing character. So it's also like how they talk to other people, like their family, their friends, strangers, but it's also how they talk to each other. So it's representing how when I talk to myself in my head, like that's the conversation I'm having with myself, just one after another. So yeah, it's cool.
Thank you. SJ, Night Feed, which I saw last night.
Oh, thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
So beautiful. In term, like, I mean, we talked briefly. It hasn't gone out yet, but we talked about this show and its creation. a little. This show is really sort of based around those dark hours with your daughter that you spent in the first few weeks. That's sort of what months. Months. Sorry. With your daughter and those late nights and things like that.
Yes.
And so, what made you want to put that in a play?
The discovery that when I started just shooting the shit with other moms and saying stuff like, you know what I think about in the middle of the night? I think about how, like, we're hooked up to farm equipment, and wouldn't it be hilarious if that breast pump, you know how if you look at it in a certain way, it's like kind of got a face, and so I've given mine a name, and I sometimes think that she's like a motivational speaker, or maybe she's like, I don't know, a 1980s aerobics workout leader, you know what I mean? And, like, most other moms are like, yeah, man, I can see that. Yeah, that doesn't sound crazy. I'm like, cool. All right, so maybe let's make a show about that. I felt understood when I started talking about the weird and kooky stuff, because you gain a different social group when you become a parent, because you have to, like, your relationship to time is different. Like, all of a sudden you're awake at, it's at 7:30 in the morning. I have already had 3 coffees and I am ready to, like, let's talk, let's go out, let's do things. I've got a baby, and all of my friends are either asleep or they're at their jobs. And so you work at building a new community for yourself. And once I started story sharing with the women that I met, I found how similar our experiences were, and B, how we all felt when we really got down to it, unprepared for the isolation, the loneliness, the self-doubt, and the massive life change. And none of us knew why we felt unprepared, because it's not like anyone says it's going to be easy being a mom. No one says that, but we all felt that, like, it should be natural. That it's what we were built for. I will just immediately love this new creature, and it will come naturally to me, and it will be smooth and radiant and lovely, and it'll be flower crowns and gauze and all that kind of stuff. And what it comes down to is that every flag that you identify yourself by, basically every single one, changes. Your relationship to your body changes. Your relationship to your work life changes. Your relationship to your apartment, to your city. Like, you're not as mobile as you used to be. You can't get to the places that you used to get to. You feel like you're not welcome in the places that you used to go to. Your relationship to your friends, because you don't see them anymore. Your relationship to your partner, because you're like different people now. Your relationship to yourself as a sexual being. You don't look like yourself. I mean, like, your clothes don't even fit. And you smell funny, and you're damp, and you're wet, and your breasts are leaking. Your breasts used to be, like, purely decorative, and all of a sudden they're functional. And that's messed up. And they hurt, and everything hurts, and you don't know what's going on down there, and you don't know when it's going to change, or if it's ever going to change. And so it's hard. Oh, also, your brain is incredibly foggy. Yeah. You don't feel as smart as you used to feel. That really hurts. Your relationship to your family changes. Yeah. Your relationship to strangers changes, because they all of a sudden have got so much to say to you. Which can be nice sometimes. And so you try to find yourself again and figure out what this new life looks like. And I think it's okay for us to grieve a little bit. We don't feel like we're allowed to, but I think it's fine for us to grieve what we lose, because we do lose a lot. Yeah. But we gain a lot, and we build for ourselves. Yeah. So I want to acknowledge what we lose and celebrate what we build and create out of this new life. And I think that we are very afraid to admit to these darker feelings, because a lot of us are terrified of sounding ungrateful.
Oh, sure.
Because we're filled with gratitude at the same time as we're filled with pain and confusion. Yeah. Like, so much gratitude and love. And yes, I'm so lucky I have a healthy child, but I also feel like shit most of the time. And both of these things are true at the same time.
But it's the thing that I think people don't talk about, because there's mommy shaming, right? There's like, oh, should you be doing that? And it comes from everybody. Everybody has an opinion, right?
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's kind of like how everyone has got a really strong opinion about teachers, because everyone's had a teacher. Maybe everyone feels like they can have a really strong opinion about how to be a mom.
Because they had a mom?
Because they had a mom, like most of us.
Yeah.
And misogyny.
Yeah, I don't know. Everyone has large and loud opinions about how to be a woman and how to be a mom, and so it can be very dangerous to go down the rabbit hole of boards and stuff, because everyone is offering an opinion and very few people are offering help.
Right.
And what you need at that time is a little bit less opinions and a little bit more help. And it's hard because we've got access to a bajillion opinions and so many books, and a lot of us live slightly isolated from our core network of people that might actually muck in with us and give us a hand.
Cool, thank you. Shane.
Hello.
A show about a man who lives in another man's beard.
Yeah, it's a tale as old as time, Rick.
Can you tell me about where this came from?
Yeah, so it started, Al LaFrance, my co-star, and I used to work on a podcast in Montreal. And for his final episode, when he was leaving, he was the sound engineer on that. I was a guest that would often come in and do songs, and I just wrote a song called The Ballad of Frank Allen, which was a song about how all of Al's achievements in life were because of a tiny man that lived in his beard. That was the genesis of the idea. And then I started to write a short story series for this website, also called The Ballad of Frank Allen. And then from that, I decided to turn it into a play. I don't know if you guys have seen the Kevin Smith movie Tusk. It's about a guy that gets kidnapped and he slowly gets turned into a walrus. It's like a comedy horror movie. It's weird. But Kevin Smith said about that movie that, because it sort of came from this podcast where they were smoking weed and they had this ridiculous idea, and he said that no one was ever going to make that movie unless he made that movie. And that's kind of how I feel about this play. Like, no one was ever going to make a play about a guy that lived in another guy's beard. And I had that idea and I went, I want to see that play. I'm going to make that play. And so I did.
Now, when you did it the first time, you were in Australia.
Yes, so we debuted it in 2016 at the Perth Fringe, where Al LaFrance was played by not Al LaFrance.
Yes, yeah. But when you do it in Canada, you have access to Al LaFrance, and Al LaFrance can play Al LaFrance.
Yeah, so Al is a real friend of mine, and the character is based on him. But yeah, he's not the original Al, which he is very annoyed about it.
I can imagine that would be a sore point for him, that he's not the original Al.
Yeah, so the way we do it now is it's St. John, my co-star in Australia. We have like our Australasian cast and our Canadian / North American cast. Yeah.
And there, knowing you, I assume there are songs in the Ballad of Frank Allen?
Yeah, all my work tends to have songs in it, just because of my like secret desire to be a rock star, and this is my way of sort of fulfilling that a little bit. So yeah, there's a few songs. St. John in the Australian cast, he can also play guitar and sings quite well. Al cannot play guitar; he sings fine. So we've had to adapt the show a little bit for that. So I play the music for all the songs that he sings, which is a challenge for me because I haven't had to play those songs for many years. So when I do it with Al, I'm like, oh yeah, I have to remember how to play this song now. That's a lot. And there is one song that Al plays, and when you see the show, you'll see it's he does his own special interpretation of the song.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, I look forward to that.
Really detunes my guitar.
So thanks you guys for talking about your shows. So we sort of briefly were like, how's your Fringe? But like, so you all had some shows aside from it being super hot. How have your houses been? How has the Fringe in general been treating you?
Good. Yeah, I think I was surprised to have anyone at our show because we are not local, and everyone was telling us that like only local people make it, and I was like, oh no. But we were very lucky to be brought into the hashtag Filipinx Fringe hashtag with the Tita Collective and Through the Bamboo. We love them so much, and they're both local, and there's like superstars in both their casts. But yeah, it's been interesting. I mean, again, I mentioned it earlier, but like there's racism at every Fringe. I experience it every single time. A lot of the time people don't believe me, and that sucks, which is probably why I wrote a show about it. So it's hard to navigate that, and it's hard to navigate like I think lots of patrons come to the Fringe not thinking about that because they don't have to. So that can be hard. And for me, like, I love validation. So if you like, I need laughter. I'm a comedian and improviser at heart. Like, I need it. And so when folks are, introspective and like listening, I'm like, okay, it's good, I guess. Like, I'm hilarious. Like, this is so funny. And of course, like, Bernice Thomas, my director and co-creator, is in the back of the house just laughing at everything. And I'm like, yeah, all right, this audience is very white. Okay, cool. Yeah, so it's been interesting. And, you know, I talk about it in the show, but I've faced harassment for 2 years from a lot of different folks, but particularly white feminists. And, that's hard to talk about because I don't think lots of folks want to talk about the violence that lots of white women have caused to communities of color, but it's like so integral to our stories. But, you know, it instantly gets like, ooh, are they being sexist? I'm like, I am also a woman, but cool. So that I think because of the show that I've made, it's hard to navigate these spaces. And I will do it. I've chosen to do it all across the country this summer. But it's knowing that we're starting really hard conversations and that we're going to feel isolation and we're looking for like community wherever we can with folks of color who are also experiencing that. So that's generally my always Fringe.
Anybody else?
Yeah, it's a weird one. Like you said, like being in one of the international acts and all the other Fringes, people are always like, "Ooh, what's the Australian guy about?" Whereas in Toronto, they're like, "Totally, who the fuck is this guy? Why are you even here?" But no, we've done one show so far. We had a decent house and we got a really nice review out of it. So yeah, happy so far. And we've got like the bulk of our shows are all right at the end of the festival. So hopefully we'll pack them out.
Strangely, Toronto, unlike a lot of other Fringes, has not been historically welcoming to people who were not local.
It's weird.
It's the one Fringe that that is so focused on its own thing that people from out of town find themselves, even if they have like a hit show, everywhere else, they're sort of shut out of the conversation here.
It feels like a very like cliquey festival.
It is 100% a cliquey festival.
Because every other festival, it's cool. Like, I mean, I've met most of you guys in Fringe festivals before, and that's how you make friends. But here, everyone's like, okay, you have your 5 friends that you know, and you will make no more because those people are over there, and they do not want to talk to you.
There's a quota. Did you meet 5 people?
Yeah,
I'm good. Yeah. There's so many famous people here too. Like in Toronto, I'm from Victoria, BC, which is unceded Lekwungen territory, and there's just a lot of like, there's people who move to Toronto who are like, that's the place to be, or maybe Vancouver sometimes too, but like, they want to be in Toronto because of the famous theaters, because of the famous people. Like, there are superstars. Like I said, like, Through the Bamboo is directed by, like, Nina Leaquino. Yeah. She's my idol of idols. Like, and that, it's just so different than lots of other Fringe experiences I've seen. Because, I've been to the opposite of, festivals that are like, international artists, goodbye, local.
Well, I remember going to Winnipeg and the Winnipeg Fringe was like, "Oh, you're from out of town. Tell me about your show." And it's very, very open and welcoming. And Toronto was like, "You're not from here. Go on."
I've decided as well. Next time I come back to Toronto, I'm just going to put the musical at the end of my title.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I absolutely have to. Absolutely.
Yeah, is this like spin-off New York?
Yeah,
sort of.
Yes.
I mean,
it is.
Really wants to be New York.
Well, I mean, there's just so many theater artists in the city just all the time that the Fringe has a different feeling here. Like, people aren't just putting on a show that they have a burning need to tell, or something that they want to create because they want to serve another community. It's a calling card for a lot of people. It's something they use because here it's different. The stakes feel a little bit higher. There is a chance that you will be seen by someone like really important, and maybe this will turn into something else. So it has a different feeling. It has more of a business edge to it that has, I think, just grown out of the fact that this is such this is a theater and TV town, and unfortunately Canada is so big with these great big chunks of empty space in between every city that most theater artists, film artists, maybe even other artists feel like we don't have very many choices in terms of what city we can live in if we want to create our work. And so
And
most
survive
of us,
doing it,
most of us just like flock to Toronto and
There's also
limits
the
you.
historical thing of the big successes that have come out of the Toronto Fringe, like the kink in my hair,
Kim's
the Dowsy Chaperone,
Convenience.
Kim's Convenience
Yeah.
started at the
Like,
Fringe and then
massive,
became like
wonderful
this.
successes.
Yeah, exactly. So I think some people go into the Fringe
For that.
looking for
Yeah.
what is going to be the next Kim's Convenience or the next big show. Even like Come From Away wouldn't exist without My Mother's Lesbian Wiccan
Exactly.
Jewish Wedding.
Yeah.
And so like everybody's looking for those things, which means that everybody looks internally, and it's like all the best of lists are all local people. There's almost never a list that's like, here's the best shows that you need to see because they're not from here, which is unfortunate. Have you guys spent any time at Postscript?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
A little bit.
haven't really. I was there in the afternoon. I should really get down there in the evening, but
I think it's great that they've found such a nice big space. Like I think all of us were wondering what's going to happen when Honest Ed goes down. Like because it's a crowded city. We're like, where are we going to go? Because I mean the city is so packed with so many things. Like so many festivals have got dibs on different outdoor locations. So I think it's pretty awesome that they signed on with Scatting. It's pretty central.
Yeah.
Nice and big.
One thing that I think that they made an improvement on is last year the ticket booth was in this small trailer outside of the hockey rink.
That will get you up.
That's no good.
No, and so it was like people would walk in to the hockey rink and people were like, "Let me tell you about my show," and there was nowhere to buy tickets. Because to get tickets, you had to go way over there. You had to go out and around. So this year, putting the ticket booth inside Postscript was
Makes sense.
makes a lot of sense. And
That is what like the beer tent should be built around buying tickets.
it really should.
That really
It
should
really
be the
should.
central hub of
Yeah.
the whole point.
Because here you've got people gathering, and you should be able to talk to them about your shows and get them to go buy a ticket.
You should make it easy.
Yeah. And last year was not easy.
When I went, I didn't see any other artists, I don't think. It was just like people who were partying, and I was like, what's happening?
Well, that's
and then
the-
I was putting, things out, and everyone's looking at me, and I'm like, all right, I'll go. Like, so.
I didn't find it the best for flyer.
I do have to say that the strange thing that I've noticed this year is all of the Fringe advertising is about Postscript.
That has been a bit hurtful.
Yeah. And I don't see anything about the theater aspect at all in any of their advertising. Which is kind of like, you guys are a theater festival. Do we have to like only advertise the fact that there's a pop-up patio? And that really seems like something that it's almost like they've forgotten about the theater in their advertising.
Well, their logo is like really small.
I know.
I saw it on the subway, I was like, Fringe. Like, at the bottom.
Yeah, it's a strange choice to make when, we're supposed to be doing this, but I guess, they make money somehow through beer sales or whatever, but it still seems like something that is kind of missed opportunity and I think a bit hurtful.
I don't know.
Well, you want to feel they
I
want
don't
to feel like they've got our backs and they're here to support us, right? We want that kind of community feel at every Fringe you go to, and for them not to be postering or however they're marketing about anything about the theater. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Did anybody go to this like meet and greet thing?
I like to sleep. I did not.
I forgot or didn't hear about it.
There was a meet and greet thing?
Yeah.
It was at an odd time too. Well,
It was
not
like
odd,
12
but
to 2.
yeah, it was during the
We just weren't able
It was
to
also
go.
when the festival already started, so it was kind of like,
What?
yeah.
I'm still like that. What meet and greet thing?
I think it was supposed to be of like staff, artists, and volunteers, which would have been really cool.
That would be really cool.
But like,
I didn't know.
I think in Fringes, I hate when you don't know who the artists are. So like, flyering is just a scary process of like, I'm in a show. And it's like, okay, I'm so sorry. Like, I haven't met you yet. But oh god.
What's funny is that I've always found, and I've been in shows, I've not been in shows, but like flyering people who are in shows, I mean, people are usually like, yeah.
That's
Strange.
exactly.
Which is good. I have never not taken a flyer. I've never not taken a flyer.
Neither.
And partially because I remember being in Calgary and going flyering and having people go, no, I'm not going to see your show. and I want to be like, That's not how this transaction works. That's not how this transaction needs to.
Yeah, you can just say,
You can just
be polite.
You can
and
just
throw it in the garbage.
take my flyer and recycle it later, but like, at least look me in the eye, like give me a fake smile and take my flyer. Don't go, I'm not seeing your show.
I want you guys to come to the Adelaide Fringe and try fly there because that's all that it's like.
Oh, really?
It is rough. I mean, some people are lovely. It depends where you fly, but some people are just so rude. And it's such a simple thing. Like, you can just take the piece of paper, walk a meter, wait till I'm not looking, and put it in the trash. I don't care. Just smile and take it.
It's so. I actually remember one of the artists lectured a line in Calgary.
How did that go?
I don't know. It was Cameron. It was Cameron.
Yeah.
She lectured a line about like, this is how we make our living. This is like, we give you this, you come to see the show. The least you can do is accept this thing that we are giving you. That's the least you can do. And I never have that here, fortunately. Actually, no, that's not true. I did try to give somebody a flyer the other day, and they just sort of were like, no, I'm not going to see any other shows.
Yeah, I've had that a couple times already. I'm like, it just started.
But it doesn't happen with the frequency that I saw it at the Calgary Fringe.
Calgary was a bit kooky.
It was a weird fringe. It was a fringe that seemed to be built for the entertainment of the volunteers rather than the.
Oh, great! I'm going there soon.
Awesome. I mean, maybe it's different.
I'm sure it's going to be different
They
this year.
change. They change and like they evolve and they become better established. And the people who run them change. Like one thing that I gotta say about the Toronto Fringe is it's so organized. Like all like the information that I need, all the documents, all the research, all like. It's been smooth. It's been really smooth. I could always figure out what I needed to figure out, get my tech specs. Sometimes you do a fringe and like you get the tech specs for your venue and then you show up at your venue and then it turns out that like, oh no, those are out of date. You designed your lighting plot on a old piece of information and like, but I don't know, the women who organize it are on top of this.
I showed up at one fringe out east. And one of the things that I use a microphone in my show. And I walked in and said, so I need a microphone. I said, do you really? I was like, yeah. Yeah. This space is just so small. I don't use it for the amplification. I use it for an effect. Okay. But like, at least when it's written down here, it's there.
Yeah. It's clear. We know what we're doing.
Yeah. Let's get to one of my favorite parts of these conversations is tell me about shows that you've seen that you loved. I want to hear about the awesome shows that you guys have seen. Let's start over here.
I gotta say, the first show that I watched was Through the Bamboo.
Yeah.
And it was so good.
So excited.
It was so good. And it's definitely not my culture, but I went with one of my castmates who's Filipina, and she was so excited about the show. She talked about the show all the time, and we finally saw it, and I was like looking at her reaction as well as looking at the stage, and it was so good, and like tears were coming out of her eyes, and obviously she understands way more than I do, and I loved that about it because unfortunately, a lot of shows that I've seen are westernized shows, not about people of color. Some are, of course, but it's so nice to see like a full cast, a full story. So yeah, it was just a great way to open Fringe, like the first show. So
it's so imaginative, like what they do, like they create this whole world out of everyday objects, and they just every time they pull out something new, I'm like, oh, what's it gonna turn into? Oh my god, that's so creative! And also, it's awesome for all ages. Like, I would definitely bring a kid to see it for sure. It's beautiful, beautiful.
Awesome.
The amount of set prop pieces, it's insane. And I'm like, how are they gonna strike that? Was my thought. I was like, as an artist,
the theater eye. Oh, that can go there.
Yeah. No, but it was so good.
Awesome. Shane?
I saw Pack Animals, which I really, really enjoyed. I was lucky enough, they have a guest mansplainer character, and I got to do that one day, and your job is basically just to be as hated as possible, and it's indulgently quite fun. And yeah, it's a really, really, really cool show. One of the shows I saw in Montreal that I really, really enjoyed as well that's here is The Peers. The premise is basically like an amateur theatre group. They've overbooked this theatre and they have to perform all of the bard's works in about an hour. And so it's one of those classics, everything goes wrong kind of shticks, but it's very well done and I really enjoyed that one.
Awesome.
So yeah, that's like my top 2 so far.
Nice. That's Jane.
I really enjoyed the Knitting Pilgrim. I love something that's gonna happen in a unique space. I love a big reveal at the end, and at the end he reveals these spectacular tapestries that he's knitted to seem like stained glass windows, and they're so stunning. Also, you get to knit the whole way through, and it's like very meditative. Oh, cool. It's a very beautiful piece of storytelling that I very much enjoyed. Also, going to shout out to Kids Fest. It's great. I brought my daughter down a couple of times. Dino Show was lovely. Yeah. And there's lots of really fun things to do. There's some nice tents and some face painting, and it's a nice, cool theater. If your kid is a little bit rammy or needs to pee, it's like easy to take them out and bring them back in. It's like it's very, very nice to bring your kids to. Awesome. Get them young.
Awesome. Monica.
I have only seen one show so far, and it was Tita Jokes, and it was fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah, it's
I swear a lot.
Fucking swear.
Right. Fucking swear. Yeah, the Tita Collective are like my fucking dream. In Victoria, I was like messaging them, being like, I just want to say like how inspiring you are and like how there isn't any kind of collective like this where I live. I don't know very many Filipino artists, and like the work that you do is just what I aspire to. And then we've been chatting ever since then. And then, of course, they got into Fringe, like, I think a little bit later, like someone dropped out and I was like, oh my God! And yeah, so it's just been like a constant back and forth since then. They have like so lovingly like brought me into their community and they're so loving people. And the show is just so great. It's high energy. There's music, there's dance, there's everything. Well, I mean, I don't know if there's everything Filipino, but there's lots of things that obviously are for the Filipinos there, which it was so lovely I flyered the line, of course. And there's all the titas. So tita means like auntie in Tagalog, or it can also mean like a word of respect for older Filipino women. So there was so many titas in the lineup, and I was chatting with them about how excited I am to be part of the hashtag and like to know the Tita Collective, and yeah, just to have something that honors their experience but also challenges them. I think the Tita Collective challenged a lot of things within our communities, which needs to happen. Of course, that's for us to do, not for anyone else to do, but that's an inter-community thing. So it was just really lovely to, watch 5 Filipina women on stage doing sketch and comedy, something I've never seen before. And I feel like this city is like so lucky to have them. And they're killing it. They're winning awards and getting amazing reviews. Like, they're gonna sell out, I'm sure.
Absolutely. So, but also, just, have you seen them flyer a line, you guys?
Yeah, they sing!
They do a musical number to flyer the line. They get like a bunch of them together, and they and then they get the audience to sing along. They have a whole thing it's brilliant. Anyway.
Yeah, if anyone like doesn't take their flyers, they're just racist at that point. So like, just take it. They're so sweet. So yeah.
Awesome.
Yesterday I saw Congratulations, which I only knew about because the Fringe made like Fringe My Way lists, which is actually really cool because then if there's certain works that you want to like go out and support, you can. So we were both on the accessibility list, and so I like made the decision kind of last minute, went, and it was so amazing. Yeah, like Courtney's so funny. And her storytelling is so good. And the show goes through like a lot of different aspects of her life. And I don't want to give anything away because every bit of it is so good. But yeah, it was just phenomenal and super relatable. And she's in this, she's in the solar room, so it's a bit smaller. So another one that I think is going to like sell out really quickly.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Thank you. I'm going to shout out 2. I'm going to echo Tita Jokes because it was amazing. also, I mean, if you don't fall in love with them when they fly your line, there's something wrong with you because it's amazing. I also am going to shout out Nightfeed because it was beautiful and it was inventive, and that's exactly what I would think a Jack Daniel's bottle would sound like. So that's
Now I'm intrigued.
so that's this week's the shows that I want to talk about this week. So we will do this again next week when we are all so much more tired.
Oh yeah.
And
I feel like I'm already exhausted.
if I didn't I'm glad that I had this in my calendar because I might have forgotten about it and people would have shown up and I'd be like, "What day is it?"
I'm glad you sent us a reminder email.
That's-
I
yeah,
would not have
exactly.
shown up.
Exactly. No. So we'll do this again, and we will have more to talk about. We will have seen more shows, and we will have more Fringe experiences. And so thanks so much, you guys, for coming out. And let's do this again next week.
All right. Sounds good.
And break. Thank you.
This has been a Homebody Productions production.